This entitled mum has had the spotlight in her family her entire life, but now she's about to make the most outlandish demand for her daughter's wedding. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. The backstory. So I'm on vacation with my family in Colorado. We landed at Denver Airport on July 5th, 2019. From Denver, we began doing random tourist attractions in Colorado, mine tours, scenic train rides, national parks, etc. After a day in Denver, July 6th, we went to Alamosa, Colorado. Then the next day, July 8th, we rode the Rio Grande Scenic Railroad. The train was entirely first-class seating. Only one car had been filled and the train was around 6 cars long. The host said that we could go anywhere we wanted on the train, except the engine of course, at all times unless it was cordoned off, remember this. So all was fine in the morning. We got up early, we got donuts at Walmart, and drove to the train depot. After an hour of waiting, we boarded the train and left, heading towards Blanca, Colorado. An hour later we get there and pick up the rest of the passengers. Then lunch is served. We are well on our way into the Santa Cristo Mountains when my twin brother ventures his way into the vestibule at the rear of the train, where you can look out the back. That's when Karen comes in.
What are you doing back here?
I'm looking out the vestibule.
Why don't you go into the open air car?
He had been out there with my dad right before this, and it was hecka loud as it was right behind the engine. That's really loud, and I'd rather look out the rear of the train.
I told you to go to the open air car, now go out there.
The host said we could go anywhere unless it was cordoned off.
This is cordoned off.
No it's not. Karen storms away in a huff. I'm still in the dome car, oblivious to this K. My brother told me after the incident on the way back, but when the train starts to go downhill, she comes back and says this to MB.
Now we're going downhill. Get in the open air car as there's no noise now.
My brother, who once again ventured out to the open air car, only to find that the locomotive has turned its dynamic brakes on. It makes a very loud whining noise. Well, now the dynamics are on, and that makes just as much, if not more noise.
Dynamic braking? Stop making things up. I've worked here for years and I've never heard of them.
Yeah, just leave me alone. Karen walks back out and doesn't re-enter until we reach La Veta, Colorado. Once we arrive at La Veta, we are handed maps of the town for our 1-hour break. We decided to hang around the park immediately next to the tracks. My dad decides to take a picture of the taillight, the car in our rear. He walks out to take a picture. He has to stand on the tracks when Kay comes back.
Hey, get away from there. There is a train coming.
I just want to get a picture of the taillight.
Well, there's a train coming. Move.
Keep in mind he is directly behind our train, so if a train did come, there would be a wreck. Whatever. Then we went to an ice cream shop to get as far away from Kay as we could, but there's still the return trip. So we board the train and leave the dome car to go to the open air car, now at the rear of the train. Me and MB sit down and enjoy the view as seen from the back. We pass some roads until we are back into the mountains. We pass through Occidental, Colorado, and this is what Kay comes and decides to annoy us again. We are pointing at some flipped over hopper cars that has a bear on them when Kay comes back. The following conversation went like this.
Why aren't you in the vestibule now? You said it has a good view.
Because we're looking out the rear of the train, and that is now the front.
Just do what I say. Haven't you learned to respect your elders?
She's like 50 or 60. Well, we don't know you, and you need to stop bossing us around like you own the train.
My 6-year-old granddaughter is more behaved than you.
Sure, Kay. Me in my head, or my baby cousin, 4 months at the time, is more behaved than you.
Move away now.
Well, we can be anywhere on this train that we want. Kay leaves us again, and we go back to enjoying the ride. A few minutes later she comes back, but now is trying to act all nice and concerned for our well-being.
Please move away from the back, as the emergency brake is very touchy, and I wouldn't want you to get in trouble with the railroad.
She has a smile that says that's exactly what she wants. Okay, fine. You found a valid excuse. Me and MB go to the sides of the rear, not near the emergency brake. So a few minutes pass by and our parents call us over for a snack. But it turns out Karen was spreading rumors now. Mum, here, come and have a snack. Me and MB begrudgingly walk over. So how's the trip? Good? Yeah. Why'd you move from the back? Because Kay said she didn't want us to mess with the emergency brake. That's what I thought. She's also spreading rumors that you were hanging your feet off the back of the train. We were sitting so we wouldn't get tired. Ironically, the next day we stood up for over 8 hours on another train. What? That was her? Yeah, it was. I saw her talking to them first. He points to a family of 3, a mother, a father, and a child around our age, who was also at the rear with us. That's so not cool. She really should lose her job. She can be entitled sometimes too, but in this case, it was the truth. Me and my brother go back to where we were, and a few minutes pass. Then 3 younger kids show up and go where we were earlier. K1, a girl around 9.
The view's so much better back here.
I know, right? K2, a boy around 7.
What's this?
Points out emergency brake. Oh, that's the emergency brake. Don't touch that, or else K3, a boy around 8, starts to try and turn it. Stop, don't touch that!
Why?
Because you're going to stop the train and get that Karen on your back. All the kids ignore us. Well, me and my brother say screw it and went back to the seating so Karen wouldn't blame us. Of course, she still would. Or before she came back and got mad at the kids. However, she saw them and didn't do anything about it. That's when my dad went over to tell them to stop. Please stop. You don't want to stop the train, do you?
Okay.
They stop playing with the emergency brake. Dad walks away. But then they start playing with the ladders. The ladders on this particular car folded in and became part of the floor when they weren't in use. To fold them down, you had to swing part of the gate out to allow the stairs to lock in down position. Fortunately, they didn't figure out how to swing open the gate, because otherwise one of them would have fallen out. They could still lift up the stairs a little, but it wasn't enough. Eventually, I got sick of the racket. Please stop, you shouldn't be doing that, and this is making a lot of noise.
Alright.
Just then, their mum came into the car.
Come on kids, let's go back into the dome car. We're nearing the summit and I want to be there for the rest of the ride.
All the kids and their mother walk away. However, Karen still hasn't left. After they leave, she comes up to us.
Stop scaring off people. They are paying customers and didn't pay to have someone harass them.
Neither did we.
Wait, who's harassing you? I never saw anyone near you besides those poor kids.
Just go away. Karen does as she's asked for once. I think it's really funny that she didn't know I was talking about her. She never did bother us again for the rest of the ride. I think she figured out that I meant that it was her who was harassing us. I enjoyed the rest of the ride Karen free and went to Chili's after we got back to Alamosa. But there's more. 2 months later, the railroad declared bankruptcy and began selling assets. So unless another company comes along, buys new engines and rolling stock, they are permanently closed. So this Karen messed up what may very well be my only ride here. So thanks a lot, Karen. The worst time to encounter a Karen is on vacation. That's a time when you're supposed to rest, relax, and enjoy yourself. The least enjoyable thing is someone who's going to unnecessarily harass you because of what? Some sort of stupid power play? So some backstory. My father is a wonderful, wonderful parent. He has always wanted to be involved in my life. Parents went through a very messy divorce when I was 2 or 3, so I literally have no memory of my parents ever being together. My mum lucked out and got full custody, with my dad getting visitation, where my brother and I got to stay with him every other weekend. Basically got to see my dad 4 days a month if I was lucky, and the occasional half holiday. Anyway, on to my mum. We got along practically my entire adolescent life. We started fighting more often as I got older. The reason this is important to the story, or rather my current situation, is because you all need to know what happens when mum and I fight. Most fights with my mum happen due to her feeling less important than other people. We fought about my dad, my stepmom, and my boyfriend, because in certain situations, she has felt that they were prioritized over her. She gets very emotional, yelling, screaming, crying, and will not listen to reason. She has said before that she feels punished when other people get more of my time than her. She has accused me of not loving her, even when I'm actively showing her how much I love her, and I feel very hurt that she feels unloved, but also upset because I should not have to prove my love when it should be a known fact. She also harbors things for months without telling me, and idealizes situations and becomes irate if they do not turn out the way she envisioned. The biggest problem is she does not listen when we fight. I would very calmly and sweetly explain something to her and try to argue my side, and it just goes right in and back out. Her behavior can be very immature, and it often feels like I am the adult and she is the child. On to the issue at hand. She casually but very firmly mentioned recently that she wants to walk me down the aisle, ideally alone, but if not with my father. She believes it is her right since she raised me. I shut it down. but she insisted, and I said we would talk about it when an actual wedding is being planned. I was not prepared for this. My anxiety went through the freaking roof. I do not want her to walk me down the aisle. My father missed out on so many milestones during my life, despite wanting to be involved. I want him to be there with me, alone. I think it's pretty rude of her to say that she raised me as if my dad was some sort of deadbeat, when he absolutely wasn't. This is the one thing he gets. She got everything else. She got to see me like 8 times more often than my dad, like literally experienced over 5,000 days with me during my childhood, when my dad only got about 700. He was the one that I want, walking me down that aisle. I know my mother, this will be a huge deal, and I'm not ready mentally for the fallout. I'm trying to figure out the best way to handle this, hopefully getting through to her, but I just don't know. My boyfriend and I have been dating for many years and intend to get married eventually. We don't know when, but I want a game plan for this well in advance, so I can talk to my mum about it and get it situated as soon as possible. I'd rather give it time to heal than her still be bitter at the wedding. And I do want her at the wedding. And I want to go dress shopping with her, and am more than happy to have her involved with the wedding party. She just cannot walk me down the aisle. In situations like this, it's hard to tell if the issue is an insecurity issue or if it's a control issue. If it's just an insecurity issue, it's something that can actually be talked through and worked out, and as long as she can be affirmed in how she feels like she's doing a good job as a mum, then it probably actually won't be a big deal. If on the other hand it's a control issue, well, that's something that she's gonna have to work on her own heart first before she can hear the truth. So, context. My grandmother, my mum's mum, is a rather crazy individual who has clearly played favorites with her kids and grandkids, and even great-grandkids, and she has never ever tried to hide it. For my mum's childhood, grandma's favorites were my aunt and uncle. My mum was the black sheep out of the 3. Jump forward to when all of her grandkids exist. Her favorite are my half-brother, who she insisted on adopting because she thought that my mum wouldn't be a fit parent, even though my mum was an acting parent to her older brother and younger sister, and my cousin, my aunt's daughter. My cousin and I are 2 years apart. I'm the older out of the 2 of us. Well, even though my mum had to be a parent to her siblings, my grandmother still managed to spoil my aunt. My aunt spoiled my cousin the whole time she was growing up, got her any toy she wanted. If she got bullied in school, she was either switched to a different school or she got homeschooled. My grandmother helped with the spoiling. She made my cousin anything that she wanted to eat. One holiday season, my aunt and cousin came over to my family's home. My aunt and my mum were in the kitchen, doing holiday baking. I joined them cause cookie dough. My cousin was in the living room, jumping on the couch like she had been doing the whole night, whenever the adults left the room. She had been told multiple times not to because she might get hurt or break something, but she kept doing it. You all see where this is going. She knocks over a lamp that was on the side table next to the couch, and from the kitchen my mum, aunt and I hear the sound of the lamp falling and breaking. When we all came in, the cousin tried to blame me, but as I said, I had been in the kitchen with my aunt and mum. So my mum spanked my cousin for ignoring house rules and jumping on the couch, causing the lamp to be broken. My cousin then tried to tattle on my mother to my aunt, and for this one instance, my aunt went, "You were told not to do something because it could lead to something breaking, but you did that thing anyway. You got what was coming." Couple years later, most days my grandmother had to watch my older siblings, and while my mum worked most of the day, parents divorced by this, and my grandmother would bring my cousin with her. One day, when I was getting ready for school, my cousin asked if she could play with my Legos while I was at school. I said no, because she's always had a tendency not to respect other people's belongings. So logically, I didn't want her playing with my stuff while I'm not around. But when I said no, she went running to our grandmother to tattle on me for, you know, owning my own toys. Our grandmother then went, "Well, spoiled grandchild, if she doesn't want to share, then we'll just get you your own," in that entitled person guilt trip tone. Fast forward to after school. I get home and went to my room to drop off my backpack and take off my shoes. As I turned to leave my room, I noticed that the shelf where I normally kept my Legos was empty. I checked checked the storage box and there's everything in it, completely disassembled. I mean, the tires off the wheels, even the Lego minifigs were pulled apart. I stormed out of the living room mad, yelled at my cousin. She shouts,
I didn't do it.
This wakes up grandmother and she asks,
What's going on?
I explained and my grandmother goes,
Well, she's been out here with me the whole day.
Grandmother always falls asleep when she's sitting in front of the TV, even back then, and has always had horrible arthritis to the point where we had to do certain things for her. So I know it had to be my cousin, since she was the only one awake and literally the only one who could have pulled the pieces apart. Now fast forward to just last year. My mother and I helped my aunt and cousin move, and I screwed up my shoulder even more than it was at the time to help them. We let them stay with us for a while, and the whole time they were here they had bouts of rudeness. My cousin was supposed to be sharing my room with me, 2-bedroom apartment. I have a loft and a recliner in my room. I have a hard time sleeping in silence, so I usually have music going at a volume that is loud enough for me to hear in my room, but can't be audibly heard as anything other than a mumble outside of my room. Our whole childhood, my cousin would throw fits whenever I was over, because she wanted to have the TV on while sleeping, most often Nickelodeon with the George Lopez show reruns going. And at the place she, her mum, and our grandmother shared, she'd sleep with her laptop on her bed playing music. Yet here in my room, she suddenly couldn't sleep with any noise going on whatsoever. She'd sit out in the living room with her mum until sometime after midnight, and I'd go to bed because I had classes the next day. She'd sneak in and would turn off the music. Some nights she'd shake my bed in the process of turning off the music. Each time she turned off the music, I'd wind up having nightmares because sudden silence, and I'd have abandonment issues for whatever reason. So after about 3 or so nights of this, I had enough and started playing music and hid the remote. This time when she came in and tried to turn off the music but couldn't find the remote. So she got mad and started yelling about it and stormed out to tattle to her mother about how rude I was being, which woke up my parents, so they got mad at me because they were still half asleep and only knew my cousin's side of things. I had to sleep with Bluetooth earbuds in, the kind that have a cord going from one ear to the other around the back of the neck, for 2 weeks, even though my cousin started sleeping out in the living room with her mum. Fast forward a couple of weeks, I had to have surgery on my left shoulder because helping them move did in fact aggravate an injury from high school. So since my cousin was no longer sleeping in my room, I was using my recliner to sleep since I couldn't use my ladder. I had to be positioned in a way where I could use my right arm to pick things up easily, since reading from my right to left caused pain. My cousin comes in one day, like a day or two after my surgery, and says in a condescending tone,
Why do you have your recliner position like that?
So I groggily waved my arm around and pointed at my left shoulder and the sling that the arm is in. Fast forward a couple more days to after my mum had a surgery, like a week give or take after mine. My mum needs me to go to the kitchen to get her some painkillers for her surgery related pain. I go to the kitchen and my cousin groans about the light and my aunt goes,
Do you have to do that right now?
In this snide kind of tone, you know, the we're more important tone. And I go, yes, mum needs a painkiller. And my aunt goes, more of an angry yell,
Well, my daughter and I are trying to sleep out here, and we can't since you're turning on the dang kitchen light.
So my mum limps out to tell her sister to knock it off. Then my aunt gets defensive and starts yelling about how they're just trying to sleep, and he came out there all loud and turning on lights and was the one being rude. So my mum tries to calmly say, no, he came out here quietly to get me painkillers because I woke up due to the foot that I had the surgery on, having a cramp. Then my aunt yells, trying to be defensive, and tries to point the blame at my mum and I, at which my stepdad gets fully woken up. He partially woke up due to my mum crying out in pain, and he storms out to the living room and goes off yelling. He's over 6 feet tall and has a deep voice, so it can be scary when he yells. At them, mostly my aunt, about, we out of the kindness of our hearts invited you two to come stay in what little free space we have in our apartment, and yet, for the past few weeks, you two have been doing nothing but disrespecting us and taking advantage of our good nature, and I'm sick of it. You either start respecting your sister, your nephew, and me, or you can get the heck out of the apartment and find another space to freaking crash. and then he stormed back to his room to try and go back to sleep. I gave my mum her pain meds and went back to my recliner while she stayed up to talk to her sister. Fast forward, last time, my aunt and cousin went to visit my grandmother a few weeks later, and when they came back, they said that they were going to move back in with grandmother. They packed their stuff so fast that they were out by the end of the next day and left items behind. The main cause of conflict is scarcity. Two people wanting the same thing, whether it's a physical item or a person, like or in a relationship, and in this situation, it's sleeping space. Obviously, the ideal would be, if possible, everyone has their own sleeping space, so it wouldn't matter if lights go on or if there's a little bit of noise because, it doesn't bother anybody else. But they have to realize the situation they're in. It's not their space to begin with. They are the ones who, realistically, should be treading very lightly.
Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.